sort of user, reader, blogger type of perspective, and how this perspective can shape the mindsets of mainstream media. So here is the plan, just to give you a rough outline. I talk a little bit about wisdom of crowds, what it is, why is it important at all for community innovation, right? We'll talk about social ways of being and doing things, right? And social is a crucial word here because, you know, we've seen it even in the title, right? I have community as a very, you know, as a very important word. Basically, my thesis is that as now, because of the web, we are getting more and more interconnected. There is a lot of, you know, creative ideas and creative potential that needs to be harnessed because of all those social connections, right? So we're just going to look at that, and we're going to look at social media maybe as one of the potential modes into which traditional media can morph, you know, as things develop and new things get invented. And finally, we'll look at very practical examples of how can communities help organizations innovate, and what are some of the challenges that traditional media organizations are facing in regards to integration of new media, and particularly community innovation, right? So, but before we go into that, you know, just look at the cover of this book of 1841, quite a famous book from the 19th century, right? With the name "Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds," right? So back in 1841, the common, you know, and it was quite an influential book back in its time, right? Where the author was arguing that, you know, the crowds are not particularly good at making decisions, right? They would normally come up with the worst outcome out of all, and that it leads to financial crises and many other things, right? And you can see a quote on the screen that men think in herds, and basically, you know, nothing good will ever come out of those crowds, right? But by 2004, you know, things have changed dramatically, right? From the madness of crowds in 1841, we moved on to the wisdom of crowds, right? It's a famous book published in 2004 by James Surowiecki, who is a financial columnist for The New Yorker, a very famous book, basically, where he argued that, you know, the many are smarter than the few. That's the subtitle of the book, right? And in his opinion, there are several conditions which need to be met in order for the crowds to produce superior decisions and superior sort of outcomes than for individuals, right? And he was basically stressing 4 parts. Diversity of opinion, which needs to exist within the crowd, right? Independence of members from one another, so that there is no groupthink, those people are not anyhow influencing each other's decision-making. Decentralization, and a good method for aggregating opinions, right? And if you look at the book, there are, you know, many very interesting examples, many of them connected to the web, right? But to me, you know, the question is what has changed, right, in all this time? And this book, both books were accepted universally, right? Well, almost universally, right? This one as a very good example of, you know, how crowd behavior might actually be bad for society, and this one nowadays was accepted as sort of the new Bible of Web 2.0. If you look at Wikipedia, right, if Wikipedia ever had some sort of manifesto, that would be as close as it gets to Wikipedia's manifesto, right? And, you know, and it's accepted at least by those working in Web 2.0. The paradox which I see here is that, you know, as science and technology develops, right, as the tools become sort of more precise and as the technology gets smarter, paradoxically, we see more and more stress and emphasis being put on human interaction, you know, being put on the roles and on the connections which exist socially, right? Which is sort of paradoxical, because we would think that as society develops technologically and scientifically, we would be looking towards science and technology as the main answer to our solutions, right? But what's happening, and what I think would happen, is that we are moving from this model where we very sort of utopian regarding technology, right? We thought that we'll get a machine, and machine will solve all of our problems, be that AIDS, be that hunger, be that poverty, be that something else, right? We're moving to a slightly different model, right, where human interaction is still at the core. If you're wondering what's that picture, how many of you know what the picture is, right? With the guy sitting at the that's a mechanical Turk. I think that's a picture from, I think, 15th or 16th century, right? Which playing chess, yeah, with a machine, right? So, and based on that model, now Amazon designed a whole new service called Mechanical Turk, right, where people can actually find volunteers eager to do, well, not volunteers, they get paid, but they can find sort of subcontractors, right, using the Amazon's web service. But the key message here is that automation and sort of technology per se is not the solution. It's still the communities and it's still the conversations and the interactions which happen among people, perhaps using technologies that matter mostly, right? And we see it a lot with the emergence of the social web. Some people call it Web 2.0, some people call it meta web. It has different names. I like to call it the social web, right? And this slide may be slightly provocative, but my argument is that, with all this new technology around us, we have never, ever in the history of mankind been more independent and autonomous than we are now. I mean, you can say that, okay, we are dependent on technology, we still need to go on and, and turn on our computer. If the electricity is off, half of our life sort of goes wrong, but, that's not the argument I'm trying to make. If you look at all the content that we create, share, consume, and whatever, I mean, we are really becoming owners of it, right? We are creators of it, we sort of can do with it whatever we want. So in that sense, if you just look at the content level, we are as independent and autonomous as we've ever been. But what's also happening is that those social connections, which the social web allowed to create around us, they're making us much more aware of other people and of what other people are doing, right? So it's not just us back in 1995, posting a message on a forum or posting a message or sending an email and then sort of not knowing what's going to happen and not knowing who's going to reply. Now it's a much more complicated relationship, a much more complicated web, where many more people see what we are doing, and we see what many other people are doing, right? And the sub-argument that you can make inside of that is that as a result of people knowing what other people are doing and thinking and reading and doing, we'll just end up with better ideas generated because people just will be able to self-censor more in a much better manner. They would be much more knowledgeable about what's happening beyond their immediate sort of environment and their immediate laptop or desktop, right? And again, we see people starting to engage in all sorts of new relationships, right? They're sharing links with the sites like Delicious. They're sharing voices with sites like Odeo, which hosts podcasts, right? They're sharing experiences with sites like YouTube, right? It's, sharing, exchanging, starting a conversation, talking to people, right? They're sharing moments by exchanging pictures on Flickr, and this list can go on, right? They're sharing music on sites like Last.fm, right? Where, again, you have to think about the new dimension which just got added to those processes as Web 2.0. Never, ever in the history of mankind we were able to actually, see other people who like the same song or who like the same track as we do at the same moment as we are listening to it in our music player, right? It's a completely different way of doing things. Now you can actually discover music much easier in a completely different manner than you used to discover music by going to a music store. Some people will say that was more superior because you had the interaction with the clerk. I'm not going to argue about that. But you definitely have access and you definitely discover music, video, photos, or links in a completely different manner than you did just a year